Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the nerd on the street, and today we are working with text files on the Linux command line. Alright everyone, just a reminder, this series is meant for new users to GNU/Linux who might not be comfortable working with the Linux terminal. Everything I'm about to show you in this video will probably be old news if you've used Linux for a while, but for those of you who are new, this series is intended to give you a starting point for working with the terminal, and this particular video is all about working with text files. Now, I'm not going to be going into a lot of detail on all the tools I'm showing you today. This is just a general overview of some of the tools I use most often when I'm working with text files. This is basically intended to give you a starting point. Let's say that you are a new Linux user and one day you turn on your computer and the X server or Wayland server, whatever you're using for your GUI, does not start up, and you're faced with a command line and you have to troubleshoot that. One of the core pieces of troubleshooting is probably going to be looking through some text files, maybe saving portions of logs to other text files for you to review later. This video is intended to give you some very basic ways that you can look into text files, search through them, and edit them. Once again, just using some of the more basic tools and some of their more common use cases that I was able to think of off the top of my head after using Linux for a long time. So let's go ahead and cut to the desktop. Alright, and here we are on the desktop. The first command we're going to look at today is called touch. This is a very simple command that you can use to create an empty file. This empty file is not going to be a text file by default. It will just be a 0-byte file with nothing in it, but it is useful for creating placeholders if you are going to create a number of text files for some reason. The usage for this is just touch followed by the file name. So if I do an ls-al on this directory, you'll see there's currently nothing in it. If I do touch tutorial.txt and I do another ls, you'll see we now have an empty file called tutorial.txt. Now this is not actually the main usage for touch. Touch is actually more useful for updating these timestamps on the files, but just the basic usage by itself is to create an empty file, so I thought I'd throw that in at the top. The next command we're going to look at is called echo. So for every command that I type into the Linux terminal, or most of the commands, we get some output from the terminal after I run it. For instance, if I type in ls, we get output, which is the listing of our directory here. You can actually make the terminal output anything that you want back to you by passing it in through echo. So if I echo in hello, the terminal will pass back out hello. This can be combined with something called redirection to put text or other data directly into files. And here's how that works. If I type in echo and I put in quotation marks, Mary had a little lamb, and I run this, our output is going to be exactly what I put in the quotation marks, and that's going to be output to the terminal. However, if I run that exact same command and I follow it with a greater than symbol or a forward pointing caret, that is going to redirect our terminal output into a text file of our choosing. So for instance, I'm going to use the tutorial.txt file here that I just made. If I run that and I do another ls, you'll see the size of that file just went up because I put some text into it. Before it was 0, now it's 22 bytes. I can take a look at what we just put in that using a command called cat, and this is going to be very useful for just outputting text files to the terminal. If we run cat tutorial.txt, you'll see it outputs the contents of our text file, which right now is Mary had a little lamb. And cat is used very often when you're on the terminal looking at logs and things, in combination with some other commands which we'll get to in a few moments. Now let's say I wanted to put some more text into this file. If I run echo again and I put the next line of that nursery rhyme here, if I just do another forward pointing caret into tutorial.txt and then I cat that out again, you'll see the text that I just echoed in there replace the text I put in the first time. That's because the single caret will always just overwrite the file you're pointing to. So I'm actually going to run the command I did before to get the first line back. And by the way, if you don't know, I haven't covered this in one of these videos yet. Hitting the up arrow key will go through your bash history file and cycle through commands that you've recently run, and then down will go back toward commands that you more recently ran. Up is going backwards in your history and down is going forward, so that's an easy way to rerun commands when you need to do that. So I'll cat out our file again and you'll see we've got that first line back. Now if I run this echo command for the second line but I do that with a double caret, now the text will be appended to our text file, it will be added to the end there rather than overwriting it. Very important distinction, especially if you're going to be writing programs or scripts that are logging to files. Most of the time when you're logging, you're going to want to use the double caret. That way your log file is appended to and not overwritten every time there's a new line. Now when you're looking at log files, there's often going to be a whole lot more lines than 2 in a log file. You know, if I cat out say var log pacman.log on my system, this is my package manager's log, there are a lot of lines in this log. And in fact, if I run word count command on that file, you'll see there are 4,844 lines of text in that file. The word count command is WC, and I use -L for line count. That's a lot of text. You're not going to want to have to read through that if you're looking for something specific. There's another type of redirection we can do. What we just did before with the single caret was redirecting to a text file. We can also redirect from one command to another. So if I run, using our tutorial text file here, if I run cat tutorial.txt, once again, it puts out the entire file, which I just realized I have a typo in, which is probably going to be really annoying for anyone watching. There we go, I fixed the typo. And now if we run that same command, cat tutorial.txt, and I use a pipe, that's the straight up and down line that shares the / key on your keyboard, this is going to redirect the output from this first command into another command. And right now we're going to use the grep command. This is basically a text search. And grep is a very powerful tool. You can use regular expressions with it, which is basically another video in itself, how complicated those can get. But for our purposes, we're just going to use it as a simple text search. So if we grep for the word lamb here, and I run this, what bash just did was it catted out tutorial.txt, which output this entire thing into the grep command, and then grep did a text search for the word lamb. It only found that in this one line of text. You can see it does not appear in the other line, and grep just passed with no other options will put out any line that contains the text you searched for. How is this useful? Well, for instance, I just catted out my var log pacman.log. Let's say I wanted to find out what day I installed a program. I'll use Audacity as an example because I'm using that to record my audio right now. I can cat out my pacman.log and I can grep for Audacity. And if I run that, you'll see I ran pacman-s Audacity on November 11th, 2018, and that's the day that I installed Audacity on this particular installation of Linux. We can even see I ran the command at 4:04 and it got done running at 4:05, so it took about a minute to install. And then it was also upgraded later on December 28th. So you can see this is extremely useful. You know, if I didn't have grep, I would have had to scroll through this entire thing looking for Audacity. Now I know how to just search for lines. Now grep has a lot of other options you can use with it. I'm not going to cover them all in this video. I would highly encourage you to read the man page or just look up grep online and read through some of the common options. But just a couple that I will point out. If I cat out tutorial.txt here again, let's say that I grep for Mary. If I run this right now, you'll see we get no results because I did not capitalize the M in Mary, and grep by default is case sensitive. You can choose to turn off that behavior with the -I flag that stands for ignore case. If I run this now, you'll see we do get a hit. We can also tell grep to only search for entire word matches. So going back to my pacman log file, if we grep this for the word plasma right now, it's going to get this long list of commands in that log file that include the word plasma. But you can see it also includes things like KDE plasma and plasma 5, which are separate words. They include the word plasma in them, but let's say I only wanted to find plasma when it appears on its own and not with other words. I can do that with -W for word. If I run this now, you'll see we get those results that included plasma within other words removed. When you use -W, you only get matches for that specific word. And one last one that I'll cover, -V is for inverted. So if I run this, it will include any line that does not include the word plasma. Not very useful in this particular use case, but there are uses for it that you can think up. Grep can also be used to search through entire directories. It's not just for searching through single files. I'm not going to go that far into it today, but it is a very powerful tool. Once again, I would recommend doing a little bit of research into it yourself. However, I do want to spend the next half of the video talking about two tools that are a little bit more complex. Everything we've talked about so far has been dealing with text files one line at a time. which is great for working with log files and doing simple scripting things. But obviously we're not going to want to do a lot of heavy text editing one line at a time where we have to do everything in order with echo. So today I'm going to be touching on the two more popular command line text editors for GNU/Linux. Now the three that you'll hear most often about are Nano, V or Vim, and Emacs. I'm going to cover Nano and V/Vim today because those are the two that you're actually more likely to see in the real world without going out of your way to install them. I'm not saying I have anything against Emacs, but I've never even used it myself for more than a couple of seconds. So the first one I'm going to cover is Nano. This is the text editor that I prefer to use. If you watch my videos and you've seen me do things on the command line, I usually use Nano because it's easier to use. A lot of people make jokes about V and Vim, about how difficult it is to use, especially for new users, and that's why I'm covering it in this video, so that you've got a little bit of context for it in case you do need to use it. But just when I have a choice, I use Nano. If we just run Nano here, you'll see it's part of the GNU tools. It's a GNU software here. It's actually a clone of an older program called Pico. If you ever hear anyone call it Pico, they're using outdated terminology because this program is called Nano. Nano is newer than Pico. They're not the same thing. Pico is what it used to be called in the old days of Unix. It is no longer around for our purposes. So if I run Nano with the name of a file, for instance our tutorial.txt, you'll see it opens up here and we see the entire file. Now Nano is really great because you can actually navigate through the whole file just with your arrow keys here. I'm using my left, right, up and down arrow keys to move around. Nano supports, end to move to the end of the line, home key to move to the beginning of the line. Control end will move to the end of the file, Control home will move to the beginning. And adding and removing text in Nano is simply a matter of moving to where you want to go and starting to type. So I just hit enter to add a new line. I can immediately start typing to add more text. I'll try not to make any more typos this time. Alright, so I just added a couple lines. That's all you have to do. We can still keep moving around. And Nano, because it is very user-friendly, it lists a lot of the common options right down here at the bottom. Now, one important thing to understanding these keyboard shortcuts is that this upwards caret, that means the control key on your keyboard. So if we want to search for a word, we can use Ctrl W for where is. I just hit Ctrl W and we get this search prompt. Now I can search for a word, for instance, lamb. It's going to start searching wherever you are in the file, but if I hit Ctrl W again, you can see it saves the last thing you searched for, so you can just keep hitting Ctrl W and enter to cycle between different instances of that word, and you can see it tells me your search wrapped through the file. So I can keep going through all the different instances of that word, or I can type in a new word. Once again, I use this very often when I'm looking at log files, just because I don't want to have to worry about grepping and scrolling through the terminal. I'll just go into Nano and use Ctrl W, and then that way I can navigate through the log file, get to where I'm looking at so I have some context, and then navigate through to read what's happening with the arrow keys. And the other big one in Nano is Ctrl X to exit. And when you type Ctrl X, you will get this question asking if you want to save your modified buffer. You can see here it says answering no will discard changes. So this is just if you want to save or not. I'm going to type in Y, and it's going to ask what file name do you want to write to. If you didn't want to write, you could have typed in and it would have just exited and discarded everything that you changed. Since I typed Y, it's asking me the file name. It's going to, by default, have the file name that I opened up. I'll hit enter to overwrite that, and you can see the file now, if we cat it out again, has been modified with the new 2 lines I just added. So that's Nano. It's my preferred command line text editor, like I said, just for simplicity's sake. Now there are several other text editors available for the command line, and one of the more popular ones is called V. There's actually more than one version of V. There's V itself, you can see quite simple here when we enter that, and there's also Vim, which stands for V Improved. Now, which one of these you're going to have by default is going to vary by your Linux distribution. For instance, here on Arch Linux, I had V installed by default. It was part of the basic installation, but Vim I had to install from my package manager. However, if you're on Ubuntu or CentOS, I can't tell you which one of these you'll have by default. Some distributions actually just point V, they make it a symlink to Vim, so you're actually using Vim no matter which command you type. There are some minor differences between the two. For the most part, Vim is just a little bit easier to use and might have a couple more options. If I type in V and tutorial.txt here, you can see what this looks like. Now, I would not recommend using V just for casual text editing, but sometimes if you're, say, using a rescue disk where you can't install packages easily, you might not have Nano installed. V might be the only thing you're stuck with, and that's why I'm showing you how to use it right now. Now, one of the most common jokes about Vim that I hear is that users get themselves stuck in it. You know, the most efficient way to generate random characters is to put a new user into Vim and tell them to get out of it and exit. You just saw me do this twice, but I didn't actually narrate what I was doing, so you might not have followed. Let's say that you typed in V or Vim and you're in a file and you want to exit. How the heck do you get out of here? You know, Ctrl X does nothing. Ctrl C does nothing. What you do, Vim actually has two separate modes. It's actually got 3 modes, but 2 that you really have to worry about. You've got command mode, which we're in right now. There's also insert mode, which you need to switch to actually make changes to the text. And if this starts to get a little bit complicated, yeah, that's why I use Nano most of the time. So to actually get out of V or Vim, by default, when you open a file, you're placed into command mode. All you have to do is type in a colon, so that's, you know, the shift key plus the semicolon key makes a normal colon on normal QWERTY keyboards. And then you type Q, so colon Q. The colon key opens up the terminal or the console within V or Vim for you to type in commands, and the Q command is to quit. So you just hit enter after that and you're out. Just knowing how to do that puts you above the standard brand new GNU/Linux user, because I'm not joking, you know, I've gotten stuck in this thing before. Anyone who doesn't know how to exit is going to have a hard time. Now, if we go into Vim, V improved, you can see if we type in Ctrl X or Ctrl C, it actually gives us a helpful tip here. Type :QA exclamation point and press enter to abandon all changes and exit Vim. So this is what I was talking about, where Vim is a little bit more user-friendly than V. They've added in some extra things like these helpful messages. I'm still showing you basic V in case you're ever stuck with it. But like I said, you can just type :Q to exit. To actually make changes, we'll go into here again in normal V. To make changes, you need to type I to switch to insert mode. So I just hit I. Now I can move around, and actually, V is very difficult to navigate. I would not recommend making changes in V. For instance, I just hit I, and then I hit the, man, I'm having a hard time just doing anything in V here. Here we're at the end of the file, and I'm going to type I. I'm going to hit enter. It's moving my period key. That's not what I wanted. We're going to get out of V here. So if you're, let's say that you're typing in V and you want to leave. If you're in insert mode and you want to exit insert mode, hit escape, and you will no longer be in insert mode. Because let's say I'm in insert mode again here. I just hit I. Now if I type the colon, you know, :Q, I'm hitting :Q, it's not exiting. That's because we're in insert mode. We need to get back to command mode. So hit the escape key on your keyboard. It will put you back into command mode. Now we can hit :Q. I do not want to save this. This was an accident. V is very difficult to use. Now, you can see if you try and quit after you've made changes to a text file, it's going to warn you that you have not written since your last change. We can do :Q exclamation point, and the exclamation point is a force quit. You know, don't worry about saving. Just get me out of here, because I don't want to save that. You can see if we cat out tutorial.txt, it did not save the gibberish I just put in. So you can edit text in V. It's very tedious. You know, like I said, what I really need to do to add a new line here is press I, use the arrow. No, arrow key didn't even do what I really wanted there. Press I, Control Enter. No, it's still moving my period around. I'm just gonna quit again, and we're gonna try and use Vim here. So my advice to you would be, if you have V and you need to edit a file, try and get Nano installed, or try and get at least Vim installed. At least you know how to exit V, but if we come into Vim, it's actually not that bad. If we type I in Vim, now we can just use the arrow key to go after the period. See, V didn't let me do that, but Vim is a little bit more user-friendly. You know, you can enter into insert mode, and then you're just using the arrow keys just like anything else. Now I can type a couple more lines. Very easy. All right. Yeah, I actually don't have anything against Vim. I know how to use it. V, I do have some things against because it is unnecessarily complicated. when you're just trying to edit text. But if you can get yourself into Vim, like I said, insert mode is pretty easy to use. Now, let's say I do want to save what I just did. We can hit escape to get back into command mode. And you can see Vim actually shows you down here, hey, you're in insert mode when you hit I, and then when you hit escape, that goes away so you know you're back in command mode. Vim has over here on the right side, it's got your line and column number for you when you're navigating around, which is useful. And if you do want to save, before we did :Q exclamation point to not save, if we do want to save, :W will write our file. And then WQ will write the file and save. Now I see some people do WQ exclamation point when they want to write, quit, and leave. Save, quit, and leave. I don't see the point in having that exclamation point, because let's say that this write failed for some reason, and then you use the exclamation point at the end, that's just going to quit, because you're using the exclamation point to force quit, even if the write were to fail. So, you know, when I am trying to write, I don't include the exclamation point. It doesn't make sense to do that for me. So I just run WQ for write, quit, and you can see now if we cat out tutorial.txt, we've got our entire text file. We're going to go in here in Vim one more time. Vim also has basic, actually it's got advanced searching capabilities, but I'm just going to show the basic ones. When you're in command mode, you can type $ and then a word to search for it. And you can see it actually highlights as we go in Vim as you type. And then when it no longer matches, your highlight goes away. If we hit enter, then it puts us right there in the file. We can do $ children, enter, and you'll see it puts us at that word. Now I actually just realized $ is taking us backwards through the file every time we search this. You can see when I did it a couple times, it said search hit top, continuing at bottom. To search from the top to bottom, I guess it's actually just a normal /, and you can just start typing in words to search from the top to the bottom, and then it will wrap back around to the top like normal. So you can see I don't even use V very often, but it's Vim at least is fairly intuitive. If we go back into regular V, you'll see the searching syntax is the same, but it does not have the highlight as you type. Regular V, you have to hit enter, and we can keep doing that same search, and eventually it will wrap. It won't tell us that it wraps like Vim does, but we can use the $ to go backwards through the file as well in regular V. It's just not telling us what it's doing while it's doing it. The last big thing that I do find Vim especially useful for over Nano is deleting lots of lines at once. Let's say you got a big log file and you got 500 lines of garbage that you need to delete. In V or Vim, actually we'll just stick with Vim here and see if it works in V afterwards. In Vim at least, you can hit D to delete one line. And you can keep doing that to delete as many lines as you want. Let's say that I wanted to delete 5 lines. I can hit D5 and press enter, and it's going to delete actually 6 lines, I guess, because 0 is the first line that it's deleting. Not how I would have written the program, but hey, that's fine. That trick works with pretty much any command in Vim. You can type a command followed by the number of times you want to repeat it. I don't know a lot of Vim commands off the top of my head because, like I said, I just usually use Nano, or if I'm stuck in Vim or V, that's the point when I pull up a guide online to do exactly what I need to do until I can get Nano installed, or, you know, a GUI. But that is useful to know how to do, believe me, when you are hunting through log files and you're stuck on a terminal with V. Let's see if that works in normal V. If we type in D, it will delete 1 line. If we type in D5, it will delete 6 lines after we hit enter. Once again, you just don't get that instant feedback. I just typed D2 right now, and there's nothing on the screen telling me what I'm doing, but if I hit enter, it will work. Once again, V is just a little bit more basic than Vim, and it's trying to make a save, which I will not do. So once again, that was not a comprehensive tour of these tools by any means. All of the tools that I showed you, from the simple text redirection ones all the way up to Nano and Vim, all of these tools have a ton more options than what I showed. But hopefully if you've never used the command line before, or if you're not familiar or comfortable with the command line, hopefully what I just showed you will at least help you get started and will make you a little bit more comfortable the next time you are stuck on a command line. I'm not sitting here advocating for command line text editing, but I am trying to make it easier for you if you do have to do it. So let me know down in the comments below on nerdonthestreet.com, YouTube, or Dailymotion What commands and what tools do you use on the command line? If you are one of those more advanced users who already knew all of this, that's fine. Let us know what other tips and tricks that I didn't show you would think new users might want to know. And if you are a new user and this was helpful to you, let me know what other things you want me to cover. I do have a few more videos for this series planned out already, but I am all ears if there's anything you guys want to know how to do on the command line. Bash is a very powerful tool, but for now, that's everything I had planned for this specific video. If this was useful to you or you think it might be useful to others, I would ask that you consider joining the Nerd Club at nerdclub.knots.co. For just $3 a month, you can help me make more videos like this one, and you get some extras with that as well. But for now, I'm Jacob Kaufman, I'm the Nerd on the Street, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.